You know, the decision to go to Africa in 1987 had to be a huge leap of faith for the both of you. How did you come together on this decision as a couple?
We talked about it for a long time. We met in high school, started dating in high school, and even through college we talked about it. Jeannie went to the Peace Corps when I was first starting out as a prosecutor. We got married when she came back from the Peace Corps, and so it had been something we had talked about and really kept alive as a dream, and then an opportunity presented itself, and that's really what happened.
And the timing of it, you were just starting a family, and then to just say, let's pack up the family and go, what a huge sacrifice. I mean, for both of you.
I think, you know, it's a lot about being open, like Bill said. If you keep that opportunity in front of you, if you're open, things come together, things fall in place, as they did.
People said it'll ruin your political chances, and I didn't think much about politics at the time, but it turned out okay.
I think so. I think we're doing good here.
And actually it probably had a lot to do with future endeavors that we had that turned out to be successful at that time. That 3 years in Zambia taught, I think, both of us a lot about really what struggle is and how to really fight through it.
And speaking of fight through that, Mrs. Ritter, you took over your one-year-old son, August, and you actually immersed him in the culture. And then you didn't stop there. You had your second child over there.
We were really blessed to have healthy kids over there and to have them be able to interact and be a part of that culture. And I know it stays with them.
It was great. The Zambian kids, if you pulled into a village, they would come running after you yelling "Makua, Makua," which means white guy or white man, you know, and sometimes our son, who had blonde hair and blue eyes at the time, would be with them, running after my pickup, yelling at me, "Makua, Makua." But it was this, you know, our kids, the two that were there, August and Abraham, they had no sense that differentiated them from Zambian kids, and you know, they're both white, Caucasian kids, but August, blue eyes, blonde hair, and yet he had no real sense of a difference. It was a great lesson for us, I think, about the things in childhood that present just as really innocent, the purity of relationships. There were some wonderful things that we learned about it watching our kids.
You know, and we think about all the conveniences we have here, fast food on every corner, grocery stores on every corner, and just to start to really feel what you did over there in Zambia, it is a struggle every day. And I think that we really take that for granted. Speaking about what you just said, it's life-changing.
This nutrition center we ran, we brought food in from the capital city. We sold it in the bush. We had 45 bush depots, but I remember coming back after 3 years there, and I had been in the unenviable position of having to tell people no about being able to get commodities, and specifically flour. Women use flour to bake scones and earn an income, but it was just a scarce commodity, and I had been the person sometimes as the final judge of who got flour and who didn't. And I walked into a grocery store and saw just shelves full of flour, and it was the first time after we got back that that it sunk in what a dramatic difference and what a separate reality Zambia seemed to be at that moment.
And a little bit more on what you did over there, missionaries with the Catholic Church, and you go over there, and a lot different from what you do now, especially at the Capitol. You worked with chickens, so I mean, take us there. Yeah, I mean, so different now for the both of you, each of your perspectives of how you started to teach them about nutrition and working with chickens.
There was a lot going on there. I mean, that was the nutrition center. We had these villages that we took commodities to, sold the commodities, started a nutrition education program for moms in the villages. About 35% of the kids under 5 were malnourished or really seriously undernourished. So then I started a poultry project. There were buildings there, but we kind of did what was necessary to bring chickens, baby chicks in, and then grow them, and really as a demonstration project. And we had 800 chickens at a time, and it worked out. It worked out pretty well. The fisheries project, we figured out how to build out a cold room, put in a compressor, put tin up, and start selling fresh fish as opposed to dried fish. And those were a couple of things, but we weren't the only thing there, and certainly there have been a lot of people working with them on nutrition for a long time. You should answer this too.
You know, actually, there are parallels. You know, it's not such a completely different thing. I think what I witnessed, Bill, is real leadership. And you hear, when you hear Bill talk about intersecting in the lives of people where they suffer. That's exactly what was happening there. Standing back, taking stock, listening. You hear us talk about listening a lot, even now. What are the needs? What is a way around or through this issue to make things better?
You can't discount the value of providence in this. And really, I mean, it wasn't just because we were missionaries. That's the true, I think, wherever you are. We were assisted in so many ways by what I would say was just some divine intersection with our work. Really, and I mean, great stories that would take a long time to tell, but you should never discount that in anywhere that you have some kind of a calling to be, and that's the United States of America or anywhere around the world.
You know, Mrs. Ritter, for you, your background as a teacher, and you did help the women with teaching them about nutrition, and I bet they were just so open to that.
You know, actually, again, great leadership. The message is much better when it comes from their own culture and from their own community. And Bill hired a woman who was a retired teacher and had raised twins, which would, at that time, may have been unusual. There was still this mentality that maybe you couldn't raise two, you might have to choose. And she is really the one who communicated with those women in Zambia about utilizing the things they have right there in their villages to really enhance their diets and challenge them in terms of the nutrition for their kids.
Just to put this in perspective about how difficult this world is, I mean, Zambia in many respects at the time, she taught nutrition, and we built a whole program around her. We had other teachers. Then she and I together decided to begin teaching AIDS awareness because of the incidence of AIDS in the villages that we were seeing. She was a woman in her 50s. She died of AIDS because of her husband's promiscuity, and she contracted AIDS from her husband and died. And that's this world, Zambia. I used to say death takes the gloves off here because they wrestle with tropical diseases, with malaria, with tuberculosis, with all these things, and then AIDS was superimposed upon them at an incidence level that we did not experience in the United States, certainly, and we saw it among the people that we worked with. We saw it, in the villages, and to have your nutrition teacher who convinces you we need to start doing AIDS awareness to herself die of AIDS just tells you what kind of cruel ironies exist in some places in the third world.
Well, the passion for me with Africa started very young on the farm in Thermopolis, and the team that I'm with on Uganda has really helped to spark this and hope to get there someday. And what they're going to do is it's a power of the meal with culture cakes, which is a high-protein pancake they'll be feeding to Ugandans in September. And I'm sure you agree with this, but the power of a meal bringing people together and the nutrition, it's really powerful no matter what your background is and how that can really bring people together.
It's kind of the component you have to have in place before you can move on to the things that we really hope to achieve in cultures like our own and around the world, around education. And, when you said that, I just picture August like on his haunches around the fire, eating the grilled corn with and it really was, the piece that, like you said, the coming together and how powerful that is, even in our own homes, at our own kitchen tables.
And I remember two guys driving 5 or 6 head of cattle into Mongu, the town we lived in. We came across them on the plain. We were in a Land Rover, and they had just stopped to eat in the middle of the day. And there was a communion between those two guys that was remarkable. If you stopped and thought about it, I mean, there was something going on between those two. And it was really, when you talked about the power of a meal, it's not just big groups. 2 men in the middle of the Baratsi Plain driving cattle, sitting down to eat together is also a communion.
You mentioned earlier, Governor, that leadership and vision begins with listening to others and their struggles. And do you believe that's where you two are today? That's your success?
Well, I think that it just is important. I mean, there's a lot of components to leadership, but I'd have to say that taking people's input seriously and listening to it, and I wouldn't say that I can absolutely improve upon that as governor. We learned those lessons, though, in Zambia in a very significant and a powerful way. The things that we think other people want or need are not, oftentimes they are not what those people really want or need. And that point was driven home to us again and again over 3 years.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this opportunity and time. And now I'm even more excited. It just keeps growing and growing, and I hope to share my story with others like you are now.
It's a great
opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Tanya.
Good luck, Rob.
Thank you, Mrs. Ritter.